What's up, everybody? When you're seeing this, it's probably on the tail end of the last few weeks of regular releases. But when I'm recording this, I know for a fact there's 3 videos that I've already recorded that I haven't released, and then several weeks where I didn't record at all and nothing has come out on the channel for a minute. So, fresh off of a little bit of a break, some time off for a bunch of events, family weddings, things like that. Been busy, and that has meant I haven't had as much time to record or work on videos, publish things, all that good stuff. So, going to get back into the swing of things though here on my end. It'll look again like really no interruption on your end because you've already seen 3 weeks of content at this point. But if you are new here, tuning in, drinking some whiskey, talking about the word. And actually today, my primary piece of inspiration, kind of coming off the heels of a very busy season, is a song lyrics. And I'll actually post a link to a video of the song in the video description. But we do have a verse to go along with it. And we're going to sip some Hard Truth Sweet Mash 4-grain bourbon. This says small batch, non-chill filtered, spring 2024 release. It is about 5 years old, right around there, maybe just shy of or just over. But yeah, 100 proof. This is a very interesting product. I don't typically like 4-grain products. I do remember this being quite unique though, and we're going to try it, revisit it, and see what we think about it. And I thought the Hard Truth bottle is awesome. The hard truth of life, though, is that we don't always know what's best, and we don't always have to have it all figured out. So, been finding myself in a season of life on the parenting front and on the life front where I feel like I don't really have it all figured out. And I'm just trying to make the best decisions possible, make sure I'm taking care of myself, my loved ones, and trying to let God reflect through me to other people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Proverbs is where we're going to be at in the Word, and we're going to talk about Proverbs 3, chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, and we'll probably go ahead and cover 7 and 8 as well, but 5 and 6 are really the bulk of it, and they kind of relate to the song. But I want to really talk about the song lyrics. The verse is kind of to support the song lyrics, give them some credence. And what this really comes back to, and I think I've probably said this before on the channel, and if you know me, I've probably said this to you before, but I am stubborn, and I like to be in control, and I like to think I know what's best for me. And God is very creative and finds new and interesting ways to show me that I am not in control all the time because I want to do it all myself. So that's what we're going to talk about today, about putting things in God's hands and not having to hold so tightly, whether it's trying to hold on to control when things aren't going the way you think they should go or would go, or even not holding on to the good things in your life too tightly. So we'll talk about that all in a minute, but let's get a little first impressions on this. All right, so predominantly corn, 78% corn. And then I pulled this up so I could check it. I think it's like 9% rye, 9% wheat, and then 4% malted barley. Yeah, that's correct. So I remember this being very butterscotchy, and it still does kind of have that, but it's got a little bit more of a corn sweetness too. Almost like a candy corn. Cheers, y'all. Very interesting. All right, we'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to, first impressions, sweet, good, but we'll break that down here in a minute. I want to break this down first. The verse, Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, say, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. I mean, really, we could just be done there. How often do we try to lean on our own understanding? For me, all the time. And I'm actually coming more and more to the realization that want for control, I'm putting a name on it and I'm labeling it as pride. I don't necessarily consider myself to be a prideful person, but how many times do I think I know what's best for me rather than leaning on God's understanding? You know, like there's so many times. And what is that if not being prideful? What is it when my daughter thinks she knows exactly what's best for her even though I'm trying to guide her in a direction that I know is better for her. It doesn't matter if she thinks it's the best thing in the world. She's being prideful. And we as human beings can contextualize that with our children and say they clearly don't know what's best for them. They're making poor decisions, and it could be microscopically poor decisions, or you might have a child that has made some very large poor decisions. It doesn't matter. You can see it for what it is and know that it's not the way they need to go, and it's not going to give them the life that you want for them. It's the same way with us and God. We're just too short-sighted and too prideful to see it. So I'm putting a name on that, and that is helping me, honestly, because it's helping me take accountability for my own pride. Because when I can recognize it, then I can relieve myself of it. I can lay it down. But into verse 6, in all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. All right, submit to God, he'll make my paths straight. That sounds way better than what I normally do, which is try to make my own path straight and end up all over the place and crooked and sideways. I love that. It says, do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and shun evil. And fear the Lord here in verse 7 is a little bit more like respect. There are some words that are used in the Bible that kind of mean different things, and this is a translation, obviously. Fearing the Lord is more of like a healthy level of respect and reverence for the Lord. And then shun evil. Push it away. Get it out of your life. Recognize it for what it is. You know, there's a lot of things in our lives where it's seemingly innocuous, or you're like, that's not quite what I need to be doing or whatever, but it's not too bad. No big deal. And that snowballs and cascades into much larger things. It's a slippery slope. And it says in verse 8, this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So I want my paths to be straight. I want health to my body and nourishment to my bones. Here's the blueprint right here. Trust in God with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Submit to him. Don't be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. Simple as that. The song lyrics, though, this is how a perfect example of how reading something so simply put in the Bible, when it is contextualized in the message of a song, it to me resonates even deeper. So this is a song by Mission House, which is a worship music group, and it's called Everything's in Your Hands. And I just want to go through some of these lyrics. They're really good. Very simple, but very practical and very good. And the song starts off saying, this is the heart of living, give and it will be given. So give first. Everything's in your hands, Lord. Simple as that. The funny thing about everything is it's not like fear the Lord. There's not like, a respect and reverence and a healthy fear. There's no contextualization. Everything means everything. Either everything is in God's hands or everything is not in God's hands. There is no in between. Everything means everything. So you only have 3 options when it comes to living life. Either everything's in God's hands, nothing's in God's hands, or a lot of things, or maybe some things are in God's hands, but you're going to take on the rest in your own hands and try to do what you can do with it. These are our choices to make. I know every time I try to do that last one and take some things into my own hands, I tend to screw things up. So, lyrics go on. This is the law of loving. Give, and I'll want for nothing. Everything's in your hands, Lord. And that's good too. Give, want for nothing. That is true generosity. Then it says, I don't want to hold on too tight, even to the good things in my life. What I put in your hands, I can never lose, because everything, Lord, belongs to you. So if we're putting everything in God's hands, whether it's good, bad, whatever, as long as we're not holding on to it too tight and we're coming to God with open hands for the blessings he's given us, for the trials and tribulations that we're experiencing, they may be from him, they may be from elsewhere, they may be from our own doing. God can work with those if we give them to him and turn them over to him. But if we're not willing to do that, then we better figure out a way to figure it out on our own, and best of luck with that. So there's some repetitive lyrics in here, just as songs do. So I'm going to jump on down to the next little part. I think I would call this a refrain or something. I'm not a musician, so I don't know. I think this is a refrain, though. It goes through a section of repetitive, I surrender all to you. And this concept of surrender is such a good concept. And I want to give a personal anecdote on that here in just a second. There is, where's it at? There's another part in here. Oh, yeah. So there's a lyric in here specifically I want to target. It says, trust, I put my whole self in it. Love like there is no limit. Everything's in your hands. Everything's in your hands, Lord. This is the heart of living. Given it will be given. Everything is in your hands. Everything's in your hands, Lord. Sing till my heart remembers. Love is a long surrender. And I love that lyric. I'd really encourage you to go listen to this song. It's a really, really good song. But the concept of love being a long surrender, whether it's to God, to our spouse, or significant other, loving is surrendering. Love is not selfish. Love is not putting yourself before the person you love, making sure your needs are met. Love is getting out of your own way so that you can show up and be there for the other person and meet their needs. And in that way, you grow together if they're doing the same thing for you. And it's a beautiful thing. Well, it's the same way with God as well. If we lay our own needs down, give ourselves over to Him, surrender, then He can work with us. He's going to love us no matter what, but we get to choose how much control we want to try to take from Him, how much we want to take out of His hands and take into our own hands. And I think that just that song and these verses go so well together in just turning it all over to God. And I know that's something that you hear sometimes. And if you're not a Christian or you're kind of like somewhat curious, but not really fully believing or bought in, I can understand how some of this might seem a little heady or a little like, I don't know, like it won't make sense. Because it's like, why? Like, I have to do things. Yeah, of course you have to make decisions. Of course you have to live your life. But there is a huge difference in just trying to do it all on your own, and you're all in your head, and you're just focused on making the right decisions, and you're anxious about making the right decisions, and you're stressed about making the right decisions, versus abiding in the presence of God, using the Word to get to hear the voice of God, to know the voice of Jesus, to see the character of Jesus play out in the New Testament, and using that to help inform the way that you make decisions, and then letting the rest work itself out, letting God move, letting other people make the decisions they're going to make, because Lord knows we can't control anyone else. They have to make their own decisions. And then taking the next step when all that plays out. It's just an ongoing process. It's to me, a daily surrender. And there's so many personal anecdotes I could give here. When I was in my late 20s to early 30s, and I had been living with everything in my own hands for the better part of a decade and a half, and my life was literally falling apart. I was going through a divorce, the last thing I wanted to be going through, with a daughter who I wanted to never have to go through that and experience not having parents present. Like, I didn't have parents present growing up. I never wanted that for her. And I found myself exactly in that spot. The very spot, the one spot I did not want to be in, I found myself exactly in that spot. And it broke me down. I had no choice but to surrender. And I didn't know what else to do, because I had tried everything that I knew how to do and it didn't help. So on a personal anecdote front, I surrender all to you, God. That's a decision that I had to make in my early 30s, and I've been living in that for the last 10 years now, and my life continues to get better and better and better. And that's not to say that my life is perfect. That is not to say that I don't have a boatload of challenges. That's not to say that I don't have vices and temptations and issues in my life that I deal with on a regular, constant, near daily basis. But this is a daily decision for me to try to draw closer to God. And when I do that, it helps me to remember to not have to deal with it all on my own. And I'm not alone in dealing with things. God is here with me. And as long as I'm living in relationship with Him, my life tends to be in alignment. And then, like in the month of May, when life was really busy, I get a little skewed on that. And then I forget to connect with God every day and touch that, like tap in and have that touch point of my relationship with God. And then guess what? I start feeling more stressed out, more anxious. It's not just because we're busy, but it's like my mind is just focused on tasks and schedules and things like that. And I lose sight of what's really important. So there's a 100 other personal anecdotes and examples I could give, but we'll leave it there for now. I do want to talk a little bit briefly about this hard truth, because the hard truth for me is that I don't have it figured out, and I'm never going to figure it out. So the best thing I can do is just turn it over to God and live in that peace, and that's the best thing for me. All right, so this right here, I mentioned the butterscotchy note, and I'm not getting that as much on the nose, but it's there on the palate, or at least it was on the first sip. I mean, for 100 proof bottled and bond, it sips exactly like you would expect. The 4-grain, there's usually like a funk on 4-grain pours that I don't really love. This doesn't really have that. It's just a little bit more like butterscotch candy, caramel candy, a little bit Werther's-esque, a little bit of that corn, like almost like a candy corn type of sweetness, and just a good experience overall. I mean, the wheat gives you some softness. The rye spice in the mash bill gives you a little bit of pop on there as well, like a little bit of sparkle on the palate, which I really like. But it's not too strong. It's not too weak. It's kind of like Goldilocks-y. It's kind of just right in a really good warm-up pour, because we've got some videos that we have to record after this for our other channel. One more sip. Yeah, I think this is like a $50 or $60 bottle. And for 4-grain, again, I'm not a big fan, but I really do love Hard Truth. And I tend to like their rye whiskey a lot. Their bourbon, their base bourbon is really good for what it is. This 4-grain is really nice as well. I do tend to go more towards the base. I think it's a 93 proof bourbon. But this 4-grain is something that to me is very unique on the market and well worth trying if you ever see it out in a restaurant or something like that. Or if you're just looking to buy an interesting bottle and support a good company, it's really hard to go wrong with this right here. But yeah, I mean, kudos to them. I always look forward to seeing new releases that Hard Truth comes out with. And I thought this would be a perfect warm-up pour, because we're going to review a Hard Truth limited release over on the Stuff and Whiskey YouTube channel. So we're going to get into that here now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for your patience on the break, even though, again, the time is off, so you really haven't been on a break, but I have. And if you're still tuning in, I thank you for your patience. At the end of the day, the reason I share this stuff, I think I've said this before, but if you're tuning in, I haven't said it in a while. Most of the content of me on the internet is Aaron and I doing whiskey YouTube videos. And if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, that would be the legacy I have left behind for my daughter. I would like to have something a little bit more out there. So there is some slight level of selfish ambition in this. But I also feel compelled by God to share how I feel and what I feel and my understanding, and to get feedback from you guys and walk through this together, because I think it's important as men. It is important to be the head of the household in such a way that you are leading spiritually and you are not relying on the woman of your household to lead you. This is just something I feel personally convicted about. And I'm not trying to get into gender roles or whatever silly stuff like that. This isn't about that. It's just, as a biblical man, I feel that it is our call to do this. And so this is part of that. It is speaking up and sharing my faith and sharing what's important to me. And also, I realize that sometimes being a Christian gets very skewed in a weird way by religion and culture. And I think it's not only is Christianity misunderstood, but it is it's it's a lie. Like, a lot of the things out there about Christianity are lies, because to be a Christian is to be Christ-like, and there is so much freedom and just a beautiful life living in that truth. And there's so many people that I think could use that, and it could benefit them and their loved ones so greatly, above and beyond the kind of eternal ramifications and whatever you want to get into with that. Not that that stuff doesn't matter. That stuff is obviously very important, but this is like, a lot of people think that's what it's all about, but this stuff helps on a day-to-day basis more than you could possibly imagine. And I just want to share that with others. And I hope this finds you where you're at, meets you where you're at, and it lets you see that God is moving in your life, and he's active in your life, and that he loves you and he cares about you. And I think that's a truth that we all need in our lives. So we'll wrap it there for this week. We'll see you guys back next week. Cheers.